and welcome to our Flip Video Lesson 3.05, Hard Times. Make sure you have your student guide book, this one right here, and also make sure you have your Human Odyssey reading book, this one right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. We'll start with the introductions and the what we're learning about, and then we'll go ahead and start right with the lesson. Lesson introduction, Hard Times. The Industrial Revolution brought remarkable changes in the Western world. Products that only the richest people could afford were now available to a new middle class, and new products sprang up daily. But the people who produced all these goods did not share in their prosperity. Poorly paid factory workers endured terrible conditions in their workplaces and went to squalid homes in overcrowded slums. Their children worked long hours too, with no opportunity to get an education and improve their lives. Was this situation right? Was it what nature had intended, as some argued? Or should the whole capitalist system be overthrown? These were hard times with hard questions. Learning objectives for this lesson. Many of these objectives are covered in detail in the reading from your Human Odyssey book, pages 475 to 489. Describe conditions for factory workers in the early 19th century. Describe living conditions for poor workers in industrial cities. Explain the link between the lack of sanitation and disease and death rates. Give examples of attempted reforms in industrial cities. Identify Charles Darwin and what he is known for. Identify Charles Dickens and the impact of his writing. Identify Karl Marx and what he is known for. Identify Queen Victoria. Recognize that the workforce included children as young as 6 and women who were paid less than men. Recognize that Thomas Malthus's ideas about population growth influenced politics and literature. Summarize the major ideas in Darwin's writing, and summarize the major ideas in Marx's writing. There's so much to be learned in this lesson. This is a huge lesson, so please make sure that you are completing your student guide and you are doing your readings and you are attending class. So this covers questions 1, 2, and 3 in your student guide. Again, open it up to page 318. Working conditions for factory workers in the early 19th century were very different from today. Factories were dangerous and unhealthy places to work. Workers had to tend to their machines for up to 16 hours a day. They had to observe strict rules and face punishments for the smallest of breaches. In addition to men, women and children also worked in factories and mills. One major difference between men and women is that women were paid less than men. Working conditions. Working conditions were bad, but for the industrial workers, living conditions could be just as bad. Some examples of these conditions included overcrowding, slums, poor sanitation, disease, polluted water, homelessness, and inadequate diet. So basically, living conditions overall were poor, but especially for the workers in the Industrial Revolution time period and working in the industry. Charles Dickens. This covers questions number 5 and 6. Charles Dickens wrote A Christmas Carol, Oliver Twist, Bleak House, and Little Dorrit. He described an industrial city called Coketown in his 1854 novel Hard Times. In addition to entertaining his readers, his work impacted society. His writing helped inform more affluent Britons about the conditions of the poor in the industrial cities. It helped create a movement for reform. Question number 7, Queen Victoria. Queen Victoria ruled England between 1837 and 1901. During her reign, she emphasized duty, hard work, and proper behavior. And again, remember, as always, if this is going too quickly for you, you can always watch it, the actual video, and you can pause it on your own time and go back and fill in these questions. Questions number 8 and 9, Reformers. Various reformers sought to improve conditions for the industrial poor during the mid-19th century. Reformers tried to make workplaces safer places to work. They introduced new regulations that required erection of fences around dangerous machinery. To improve the lot of overworked workers, reformers passed laws limiting the length of the workday. Questions number 10 and 11, London improvements. The establishment of a new citywide police force made the streets of London safer. Sanitation was improved and helped reduce disease in the British capital. This was done with the construction of new sewers that discharge waste farther downstream on the River Thames away from the city. Questions number 12, 13, and 14, Karl Marx. Karl Marx was a socialist writer who called for the overthrow of capitalism. His major works were the Communist Manifesto and Das Kapital. He believed that the working class and the middle class struggled against each other for a greater share of economic resources or society's wealth. After a revolution staged by the working class, personal property would no longer exist. Proletariat was the name he and others used for the working class. Bourgeoisie is what he called the middle class. And this is in direct disagreement to what we learned in our last lesson about Adam Smith and the socialist theory. Questions 15, 16, and 17. Darwin and Malthus. Charles Darwin was an English scientist who proposed a theory known as natural selection. The idea that living things had changed over time appeared in his book The Origin of Species in 1859. Thomas Malthus believed that population growth would exceed food supply. His beliefs influenced political debates. They were discussed in the press. They were even featured in popular literature such as Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. And we come to the end of at least our reading guide in the Flip video lesson, Thinking Deeper, Explore, and Discuss. So I'd like you to take a few minutes to talk about these questions with your learning coach. Most of us now lead comfortable lives, more comfortable lives, than the men, women, and children who worked in factories and mills during the 19th century. But is it possible that in 100 years' time, people will look back on the present era and describe it as hard times? What could they think was hard about life today? And we need to think about that, I guess, in relation to everyday life, but also in relation to this pandemic that we're in as well. This is kind of a unique time in history that we can probably have a different opinion this year than maybe we had last year, or hopefully that we'll have next year. Discuss the Industrial Revolution, positive changes in countries like Great Britain. Give reasons for your answers. So again, please take some time after you're finished with your reading to discuss these questions with your learning coach. And then we come to the part of the optionals in your student guide. These are not required, but they will help you to develop a further understanding of this lesson, these concepts. So these are pages 315 through 317. So again, you can do this on your own. These slides will be in your OMS, your online middle school. You can also pause this video and fill them in. This is a section on child labor, some questions that were asked of someone in this time period. What work was like, how were they treated, what were they able to eat, if they even were able to eat. They were younger than you, a lot of children younger than you working in these factories. And so they were definitely working long periods of time, long days with maybe little food to no food and lots of pressure put upon them. So there's questions there and some answers. Again, you can fill them in. You can have your own answer. I put answer choices in there, but you can definitely have your own opinion there as well. And then this one is about oily business. Oil fields of the world produce petroleum that's turned into gas that we use in automobiles. Again, this kind of goes along with this industrial revolution where we're headed. In future lessons, we're going to learn about transportation and how that's evolved. So you can answer these questions on your own. I also do have sample answers there for you. So please feel free to do that. And then we come to the end. The proletarians have nothing to lose but their chains. Karl Marx. Thanks so much for joining me today.